Joining me now live from the Gold Coast is the LNP's spokesman on the environment, David Crisafulli. Thanks for joining us again, David. This is astounding. Essentially, yesterday, Anastasia Palaszczuk was giving herself a kick up the bum, saying, come on, get on with it. You've been dragging your heels.
What a transformation. The day before the election, she was Queen Green in Brisbane. The day after, she was King Coal in the regions. Alleluia, the conversion on the road to Damascus. There it was.
Still, all the same, surely you would welcome her conversion?
We will, but now we want to see action out of that, because this is a process that has been farcical. It's been going on for the better part of a decade, and all I've ever wanted is for them to be treated like everybody else. No special deals, no taxpayer funding, no wink wink, nod nod. But likewise, no undermining, no backstabbing, no dragging on. And that's what has happened. It's been farcical. In the time that other mines have been approved with the same challenges, this one has been dragged on. And I'll tell you why, Chris, because they thought there was going to be a Labor government in Canberra. They thought they were going to be able to make this great political statement. And in the end, the message was loud and clear, and we're not going to let them off the hook. It needs to be treated fairly, it needs to be done quickly, and right now the Queensland economy needs every opportunity to get back on its feet that it can be offered.
Yeah, I don't want to get sidetracked, but this idea of government funding has been a bit of a furphy with this project, and the idea of a government loan to help get the rail line in place is nothing but sensible national development. I know it's been ruled out because of the politics around this mine, but if the Adani railway line to port gets built, of course there'll be other developments, other industries get to use that line. So it is an important piece of national infrastructure, and if there was some government support for that, I don't think it would be a problem. But because of the politics around this mine, that's been ruled out, and Adani will build it anyway. Tell us now what can be done. I know the Adani itself have been out saying they're keen to get going. They reckon there should be approvals in place within a fortnight to get cracking. Is that realistic, and what can you do as an opposition to bring that about?
We'll be holding them to account every day. Is it realistic? Absolutely. Because the things that have been assessed or were again being reassessed were already done. The government had looked at the black-throated finch issue, but then when it came through its own approval process with a tick, and they needed a little more stalling time, they constituted another panel with favourable people to have a look at it again. Then there was the water issue from the feds. That was being used as an excuse. That got cleaned up and again thrown back into the mix. There's nothing stopping this process happening really quickly, because it has been analysed, it has been the subject of a paralysis via analysis. The time for talk is over, the time for navel-gazing is over. Make a decision and let's get on with opening up an important part of the Queensland economy.
This idea of stopping the mine for the black-throated finch is the biggest furphy I've ever seen. No, I shouldn't say that, because there have been some ridiculous examples like this thrown up to try and block projects. But typically when you get a mine development in such a remote area, what you get is a whole vast area of habitat put aside, set aside from farming or use for pasture. It actually becomes a wildlife reserve, a place to preserve habitat around the mine. So it's actually good for these native populations.
Chris, it was never about the black-throated finch, it was always about the green-throated Deputy Premier. And that's been the problem with this government, is that it has been completely consumed by the left. And to give your viewers a sentiment of what sort of electorate the Deputy Premier represents, think Newtown in Sydney or Fitzroy in Melbourne. It's a very, very hard left-green area. She has extreme power within the government. The people who she relies on to maintain a seat do not share the views that the vast majority of Queenslanders do. And the vast majority of Queenslanders want things done economically well and environmentally well. They want us talking about renewable energy. Likewise, they want us to acknowledge that we do have a thriving coal industry. It's about a balance. It's about a mix. But the people who keep the most powerful person in the government in a seat don't see the world like that. They have vastly different views. And as a result, a government has been held to ransom by a very small portion of people in one state electorate. And that's not right. That's not fair, that's not good for the Queensland economy, and we've paid the price for it.
Welcome to Western liberal democracies in the 21st century, David. This goes with the theme I opened up on, the disconnect between the political media class and the mainstream. It is those inner city areas in Melbourne and Sydney versus the interests of the rest of the country. Just as in Britain with Brexit, it's inner city London versus the rest of the UK. Just as in the US, it's Manhattan and Los Angeles versus the broader US. This is the new divide in modern politics, and we need to know how to deal with it. You mentioned Jackie Trad there, the Deputy Premier. This is the next big hurdle, isn't it? This could be the next big problem. If Anastasia Palaszczuk does move forward and do what she should do to get this mine approved quickly, there's already talk that she could face a challenge from Jackie Trad, so you could have leadership instability in the government as the next problem to uphold this mine.
Yeah, well, they're tearing themselves apart at the moment. The Deputy Premier spent yesterday on the phone shoring up her numbers at a time when she should have been shoring up the approval of projects, at a time that she should be looking at ways to get back to having a thriving economy. No one wants to see the political games. People want to see good government. You mentioned about the new democracy. Well, the joy, Chris, is decisions aren't made via Twitter on these things. Every few years, the everyday person has a say, and they had a say on Saturday. They came out and they voted for a balance. They voted for a bit of common sense, and I hope that in Queensland that message will get through. We will make sure and we'll hold them to account. There's an election in 18 months' time. I want to be part of that change that can deliver long-term stable government for Queensland. But in the meantime, we're not going to let them off the hook for the next year and a half. The economy is too important for that. We'll hold them to account every single day.
I don't know if Parliament's sitting at the moment, but regardless of that, if you can get it back soon or whatever, shouldn't you be proactive as an opposition, trying to put up a motion supporting the government and the project, or promising to support any legislation they need to get up, just to show that you're willing to be bipartisan, get on board, help the government deliver this thing soon?
Yeah, but our leader's been doing that, and she hasn't waited for it to be an election result to nail her colours to the mast. She said from day one they need to be treated fairly. We don't have the numbers on the floor of the House, far from it, but we do have a will and a desire, and we're going to make sure that we hold them to account. That's what good oppositions do.
Just finally, David, on a bigger picture issue about coalition politics, the merger of the Liberals and Nationals in Queensland has been through its ups and downs. When things have gone badly, such as the last election, people say, you know, maybe the marriage won't work. But after a result like you got on the weekend in the federal election, can you see that this LNP, this package of the LNP, the merged parties, is operating successfully in Queensland, marrying the interests of the cities and the regions? And can you see any potential for it to spread further south?
Look, I won't give advice to other states, but I'll give a reflection on our state. It works, and it works well. And the reason why, the values that drive the butcher in Boulia are the same as the boilermaker in Brisbane. They just want less government. They want government to get out of their way. They want a balance. They want a future for their kids. They want things managed economically sustainable. Everyone cares about the environment. This furphy that somehow people in regional Queensland don't care about the environment is a nonsense. My father is a farmer, one of the great conservationists, but he also wants a strong economy. It's the same values that drive people. The merged party has been the single best thing that has happened in Queensland. No more tearing each other apart. Good, sensible, pragmatic policies, and the result, as you saw, delivered a very good Prime Minister the opportunity for another term, and might just save the nation from what could have been a decade of socialism.
David, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.